switch gears. Probably the question that I think everybody wants to know. What is like the dating world like for you?
I want to say there's like a problem with that question because it like is so different for transgender people who are gender fluid and who are not, like me. I mean,
what does that mean?
Yeah, like what's a gender fluid trans person?
Yeah, what is
someone who is gender fluid? Think of the word itself, fluidity. You know, like that they don't necessarily correspond or fall into the normal binary classification system of female or male expression or interests.
So would they still be considered trans then, though?
They are in the transgender umbrella because the umbrella, and this is one thing that not necessarily I have a problem with, but it's kind of something to note that like I feel so much of like gender identity is like just thrown into the transgender umbrella. Like drag as a form of expression, gender fluidity, gender non-binary, the list goes on. That's why it's LGBTQIAPD, you know, like plus, you know, and what it means to be fluid is just to like not necessarily categorize themselves or like be more one or the other. They're just kind of are. And in some cases, that affects their pronouns too, in the sense of that they would prefer to go by either I've heard of like Z, like ZHE, right?
I've never heard that.
Or they them theirs as well. But I mean, most cases like me, I just go by she, her, herself, you know, because that's just what works for me, you know. But that's just because I identify as female.
That just reminded me of something that you said at Starbucks, and you said that you identify as a heterosexual. After thinking about it, whoa, that makes sense.
Right.
So, but can you explain
and
that?
I think both those questions go hand in hand, like what it means to be dating and like how I'm perceived. I do identify as heterosexual because, I mean, if you think about it, I'm fully female. I have female parts. I am a female, you know, I think like a female, and I like men. So it's like the opposites, you know, that's like heterosexuality. That's the point, you know. But often of the time, like people who are ignorant to the issue also will believe that I'm, you know, gay just because at one point I was a boy and like I like boys, you know, and that's wrong because that's not who I am today. Dating, this also falls into like fragile and toxic masculinity, in that not everybody is okay with going against society basically and being with someone transgender, and it has proven to be difficult, but it's not impossible because there are people who are heterosexual and never had any transgender experience that I'm dating and that genuinely are open to the idea. And I think that's what is the main problem, is that so many people are so closed-minded and like only want the easiest path in life and like believe that there's no intersectional approach to anything. So
you were saying that it's hard to feel like you fit in because somebody like me would put you in the kind of like LGBT community or category or whatever, but
exactly.
You're like, when I'm in West Hollywood or whatever, like it's not really like that,
right?
And even within like the trans community, it's not really like that. In finding like relationships and stuff that aren't, you know, people asking you how much or whatever, like stuff like that.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, a big stereotype in the transgender community is sex work, and that is the appropriate term, sex workers. That's how they choose to live their life. So be it. Like, you know, it really doesn't affect me. But in that sense, it is too often generalized, and a lot of people on dating apps will ask me in a very derogatory way, like, oh, how much? Like, you know, assuming that I'm for sale because transgender people have a history of sex work. It's just like two black people. It's like, you know, one black person sells crack does not mean every black person sells crack. You know?
I don't know what you mean. I sold crack.
So it's like not every transgender person is doing the same thing, you know, just as much as how I'm sure you get this, like, oh, have you met my girlfriend, Lily, who's also a lesbian? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you guys are lesbians and you guys must know each other, you know?
Right.
Like, it's kind of like that. Like,
totally.
Or like, hey, like you tell me you're a lesbian and I go, oh, I love Ellen. You know, like, because that, you know, and it's kind of, it's just like inappropriate. It's inappropriate. Yeah. It's stereotypes and generalizations of any community.
I do love Ellen.
Who doesn't?
I do too. Yeah.
If you meet somebody and they don't know, like, to you, what's like the general rule about that? Like, do you feel like you should tell them? Do you feel like you shouldn't have to?
Okay, so
because that's like such a that's such a huge hot topic. I feel.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, do you tell
this
them,
is a big part of transgender identity is disclosure. I've read a couple different perspectives, like, you know, by now, like where I'm at in life, as far as how certain people go about disclosing. I personally like to be very upfront and like just let people know so that if it is a big issue for them, then I don't have to deal with that later.
I feel like that's the safest.
It is, and it's safe because it's like if I'm dating this 6'3" jacked guy and, you know, we're making out and it isn't until he sees me fully naked, you know, that like he asks me or inquires or later finds out, even let's say not even during sex, like he finds out whenever, and then it's a problem, you know, and then I get beat because, you know, he's not okay with that and he's super transphobic and homophobic, and that's obviously a problem. So
right.
And in efforts for me to like minimize like danger and maximize my safety, I like to put it out there because I also want to date someone that is sure of themselves enough to date somebody transgender than like someone who's like embarrassed of it, because I wouldn't want to be with someone who's embarrassed of me. If I meet someone like, let's say at work, I don't tell them because it's none of their business. They don't need to know. But if we're dating, then I would tell them, you know, most likely the like second date, or, you know, how I feel the first time. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not like, hi, my name is Sophia, I'm trans. You know, like, but
what you're saying about somebody being sure of themselves, I think that's just super important because there's so many of these, like people, celebrities or something, or athletes that get caught with a trans. It's automatically like a publicity crisis for them,
right.
Where they try to run and hide it or like shove it under. But it's, to me, if you knew that and you like that person, why don't you just own it, you know?
Right, exactly. And that's
like I'm waiting for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. Even with like prominent transgender figures that are currently popular, like Laverne Cox, you know, and Janet Mock. Like I can imagine, and it would be safe to assume that their significant others experience scrutiny by like, you know, other people. And like that's unfair too, because it's like you can't judge anyone else for the way that they choose to live their lives, you know.
And I was telling her earlier, like when it comes to that, I think it's one of those things that people are like afraid of because they never see it, kind of.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why I wanted to even do this, was because I think if, you know, like you were talking about YouTube, if I was specifically looking for that, or if I was like trans myself or something, I'm sure I could find that like on YouTube, but like it's only going to be in a place where somebody who's part of that or somebody who's specifically looking for that is going to see it for the most part. And it's like Laverne Cox just is like a pretty new celebrity, you know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
And so there's like, and I was saying before, in like the celebrity world, when somebody came out, like you find out so-and-so's gay, like it was this crazy thing where now it's still like kind of a crazy thing, but it's not really like, it's like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Where I think in this case, it's, you know, that PR crisis mode thing still, because it's still a thing that's not as normalized, where you don't have like the Ellens, you know what I'm saying? Like these type of people who are just regular staples, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so I was like, I wanted to do this to put somebody like you in a place that is outside of that world, because like we don't necessarily do that, but like we're just being like, yo, this is a person that we know. So and I think that whole shame or whatever will go away the more exposure people have to it. Because right now it's just a lack of exposure, I feel like.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's people's inability to cope with something so different and ignorance. I mean, that's mainly what it is. That's just what it is.
Yeah, it's ignorance. And going off of what Tony said, I said in the homophobia episode, this is, for me, for people that have known me, I'm a homosexual and that's that personified. You are trans and that is personified. But you speaking right now, you're just Sophia. There's nothing that should make people afraid of who you are,
right?
Because of
it doesn't change who I am. My
exactly.
identity doesn't change who I am.
That was kind of the main thing that I wanted to do with this, was to just like show that. Like, it's the same thing in the homophobia episode. It was like, why would I choose to do this just to be doing it? Like,
exactly.
The amount of stuff that you told us that you had to go through, like,
for real.
That's crazy. To be like, I'm just doing this because I want to stand out. Like,
or I want attention.
Right.
Like, no, I don't. I don't.
Want attention. I love less attention, matter of fact.
But I think that all goes back to just not judging people by their exteriors, because you have no idea, what they identify with. Or
what I get is that when I meet people, they're like, I never expected you to be so purely feminine. And in fact, a lot of people who seek transgender women and are okay dating with transgender women are men or women who are drawn to femininity. And the purest form is, like, I feel, is like transgender people, because it's so like natural that it's like you said, I don't have to convince anyone, because I'm so self-aware as a woman that, like,
you can even put me in a man's body. And
exactly. Yeah. Even if I didn't have these current physical attributes, I still would be.
You still would be that.
Yeah. And it's still valid, even if I was more masculine. My womanhood isn't compromised because I'm
questioned.
Or questioned because I do have more masculine attributes.
That's what and that's what I kind of saw. It was like crazy for me to come to that realization, like, because I never thought that I would think that in meeting somebody like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was just like, that's a girl for show. You know, and I feel like, same like you said, even if you looked exactly like me, I'd still be like, man,
I'm talking to a girl.
Body.
Yeah, like I'm talking to a girl. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm 100,000% passable, but what people tell me and like my experience is that I am fairly passable, so it does help me in the sense of like in a dangerous setting, but it also just makes me prone to like attention because I am, from what people tell me, pretty, so I don't want to be like I'm pretty. So it draws attention, and so sometimes I don't like it because when people get too close, it's like I don't need to tell you my business.
Do you have any anxiety with bathrooms? Lately it's been worse for me, I feel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I'll get looks left and right a lot of the times going to the women's restroom.
Okay.
Because people will do a double take and look at me. There's only been one time where I had been confronted. I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to knock her out, but I didn't.
Right. Well, I too was confronted in high school. Mm-hmm. I transitioned, as you know, going into my junior year, but it wasn't until my senior year that I just switched from using the men's to the women's, and I happened to see a teacher in the bathroom, and as I'm walking in, she like stops me and is like, well, are you supposed to be in here? And I'm like, excuse me, like I'm just here to like tingle. Like I'm not here to like do anything else but relieve myself. And she's like, well, I'll have a conversation with the dean and like we'll go from there. But you can use it for today. And I'm like, okay. The only time I was ever called into the dean's office during my high school career was for this, and the dean asked me if I had surgically transitioned, and I said no. And she said, well, I think it would be best if you just now use the nurse's bathroom, which was often inconvenient because it wasn't close to any of my classes, know. So I thought that was very unfair, and I didn't realize then that they were, in a sense, discriminating me for my gender identity. I hope now that most universities and receiving federal funding especially do not discriminate against transgender people. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Hey.
Speaking from someone that works at a law firm.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you want people to take away
I guess I want
from this
people
conversation?
to take away that if you think you know any given subject, like, you're wrong. Basically, like, while you shouldn't necessarily just do research for the fun of it, but like, let's say for example, you and Tony and me were just at a party, you know, and then Angel told you, oh yeah, she's out here doing this and that, da. I'm just so happy for her as a transgender person, you know, and you accidentally disclose the fact that I'm trans. And then Tony's like, whoa, did not see that coming, you know. And so I'm sure even before we met at Starbucks, you guys both had so many questions for me. I believe it is, like, people should take it upon themselves when put in a situation to do research. Like, I'm not telling you need to write a thesis or, you know, 14-page paper. No. But given the current political climate surrounding transgender people, I believe people should do their own form of research, at least just to be aware of what's going on.
So would you say people should know what they're talking about before they open their mouth?
Exactly.
What?
Basically.
Imagine that!
Crazy.
Basically, yeah, because even, and this is, I mean, another thing we were talking about was like hate within the LGBT community. And how, like, some transgender people think they know more than me and assume things about what the goals I have for myself and what I want. And, you know, as I said, the first few minutes of this is that everybody is different. Like, you can't generalize or conform one thing that is so fluid. You know, it's very, very disheartening to know that people really do think that they know more than what they do, because they don't. You know,
So shut the
Just educate yourself.
essentially shut the
Wow. Dude, I think that's a perfect ending.
Just shut the up. That's what it is. That's
Yep.
Thank you, Sophia.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank
No
you so
problem.
much for being our first guest.
Oh, I'm so happy.
This is about to be epic. And yeah, like and subscribe. Share this with your friends who open their mouth about stuff they don't know nothing about. And do the world a favor.
Share.
And do your research.
Wow.
Okay, bye.